Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to another episode of the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. I am Reverend Frances Faden, and I'm so grateful that we get to spend this time together helping you to magnify your miracles. And we are really going to be doing that today because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is astrology. We're going to be learning about the cycles and how to work with your own personal cycle. We're going to be talking about the divine feminine, everything I love talking about. But before we do any of that, let's take a few deep breaths together, just to get ourselves grounded and centered. Breathing in the energy of expansion, breathing out anything that you no longer need. And if you are driving, please keep your eyes on the road, but you can always bring your awareness to your breath. And as we start to become more and more in this present moment, we feel that divine presence, that energy that is the field of miracles that we're all part of. So knowing that whatever you need to hear today to help you to magnify your miracles is exactly what you're going to hear. Let's take one more deep breath together in gratitude, and we can begin. All right, my friend. Well, welcome once again to the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. So I have such a special guest to share with you today, and you're going to love this conversation because we are going to be talking about some wonderful mystical things that I know are of interest to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And these are some of the things that I've been so curious about since I was literally like 11 years old. So I want to introduce my fabulous guest, Joanette McGeoch. She has been an astrologer for over 48 years. She's been doing it a long time. And connecting to divine source has always been her goal, which is what led her to study world religions and ancient cultures. These studies have actually expanded her understanding of astrology. She's taught classes in astrology and dream interpretation, psychic exploration, and even life after death. And she has also led a woman's full moon gathering for over 25 years. Joanette's explorations have brought her to an understanding of the cycles of life, which we're going to be talking about, which she incorporates into her astrology chart readings. Her joy is to continue to learn about the unseen reality and its vast mysteries. And her astrology readings help you to remember the gifts that you have brought into this world and to help you navigate the cycles of your life. Welcome, Joanette.
Oh, it's so good to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful to have you here. And I can't wait to dive into all that. But first, I always ask all of my guests, Joanette, what is your definition of a miracle?
My definition of miracle is something that happens that doesn't have, it's not rational. That's not reasonable. And at this season of the year, I always like to quote this poem, Madeleine L'Engle's poem called The Irrational Seasons. It's from her book, Irrational Seasons. And the poem is, "This is the time of the irrational season, when love bursts forth bright and wild. If Mary had been filled with reason, there would have been no room for the child." And to me, that's what miracles are. When you put reason aside and you allow the unseen, the miraculous to come through.
I love that. And I love that poem. That's so beautiful. So we are recording this in December of 2022, getting ready to go into the 2023 vibrations. So when we're talking about that season, absolutely. And we're going to be talking a lot about seasons and cycles. So thank you about that for that. Now, it has been said that everybody needs to have a good astrologer in their lives. I've heard, who was it that said that? You need a good doctor, a good astrologer, and I forget what the third one is. And I couldn't agree more. Somebody that helps you understand this energy of cycles, which to me, this is an ancient science that I started studying, not studying to do it, but studying to really understand myself back when I was like 11 years old and I didn't understand the world. And I was like, what is happening? And astrology was one of the first doors that opened for me because it is a system of cycles and patterns, and I could start to understand myself a little bit better. And so what I love about you, Joanette, among many, many things, is that you have a very spiritual approach. I know you're very connected with the divine feminine yourself, but I would love to hear the story of how did you get into this work?
Well, I went to 12 years of Catholic school, and I was very devout. I wanted to be a nun, but then I met my husband, and then that changed. And I had children, married, and had children quickly. I had 4 children in 5 years. Of course, I
Wow.
cheated. I had twins in there, so it was a little bit of cheating. But when I was pregnant with my last child, my oldest was 4, and I wanted to be able to talk to somebody over 4 years old. And my cousin had she taught school, and she had a student whose mother was going to give a class in astrology. I didn't know what astrology was. I didn't care. It was an opportunity to talk to somebody over 4. So, and it was walking distance from my house. I could get the kids ready for bed. My husband could take care of them, and then I would go to the class. And I loved it. I was like a duck to water. It's a
Wow.
lot of math, and I loved math and a lot of geometry. And in those days, we didn't have computers, so you had to do it all by hand. And so to me, that was fun. I was weird that way. And and doing that, I realized that it was something that I thirst for, and I wanted, and felt comfortable with. But being Roman Catholic, it was kind of like, well, is this gonna, you know, am I going down the path of evil? You're so afraid. So I studied. Then I began to look at the Bible, ancient history, where it came from, the history of astrology, and realized it was, over 10,000 years old, probably older than that, and of how we charted the stars, and how we understood it. And I began to realize that the divine speaks to us everywhere.
Yes.
And so that got me to realize that it was another way that the divine speaks to us. That's what astrology was.
I love that. And I love that for you, you just want to get out of the house.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to somebody over 4. That's all I cared about.
That's the best reason I've ever heard. I love that. And yet, the divine met you there and opened up this whole way of looking at it. And there is definitely a lot of math involved for people that want to go down that road, which is one of the reasons I never became a professional astrologer because I can't do that. But I love the psychological aspect of it. And it's so it's so different than what we've seen in popular culture, like, get the newspaper and read your horoscope type of thing. It
Right.
is so specific.
Yes.
And the way that I've been taught, what Mother Mary has also shared with me, is that as above, so below. Whatever we're seeing is a reflection. It's not like it's happening to us. It's actually guiding us. It's our own inner light reflected back to us. And I know that that's one of the perspectives that you have as well, right?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I always get upset when I see the astrology say, "Oh, all Gemini are like all Can." No, it's not like that at all. But it's not as much fun, I guess, if you're more detailed about it. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it gets very exact and very specific. So
yes.
I'm curious, you've been studying this for a long time. You've been working with people for a long time. You still love it, and I understand it because it's one of those things that it's brand new every time you work with somebody because it's not cookie cutter at all. What do you think is like one of the most misunderstood things about astrology? And what would you like to people to know instead if you could get them to know something?
Well, I think people think astrology is predictive and that it's going to tell you the future, but it doesn't. It One of the first things I learned was the sign that the stars impel, they do not compel, and so we have free will. And so how do you know justify both of those together? And the way that I see it is, the astrology gives you the landscape. It's what you do. You have a choice to what you do in that landscape. Just like, the easiest cycle that we know is the day cycle. When the sun seems to rise in the sky, it's going to be day. And then as it gets darker and it's a different place in the sky, it's going to be night. What you do in that day or what you do in that night is free will. And so that's how I the cycles tell you, or the movement of the planets give you an indication of what's happening generally, but what you do within that is your free will, your choice.
I love that. I love that so much. And would you say that learning how to live in harmony with those cycles is something that you help people with, like how to know what their own personal cycle is, where they are in their life cycle, all of that? Would you say that that's part of what you do for people?
Yes, exactly. Because sometimes people say, oh, this just happened. I don't know what's going to happen next. Well, it didn't just happen. There were things we were not conscious of, the things that happened before, and we're not always conscious of the cycles that we're in. And so when you come to a point of confusion in your life, if you're able to reflect back and then you have a choice of how to go forward, um, one of the best examples to me is eclipses. Eclipses have an 18 and a half year cycle. So every 18 and a half years, something repeats itself in your life. Not the same thing, but similar. And so in 2004, which is anywhere from 2003 to 2005, because you were preparing for that. Um, say the birth of a child, you had a birth of a child, new beginning in your life, something new in your life. 18 and a half years later, the child's graduating. You said, oh my God, I don't have the child's not going to be here anymore. But that's not, it didn't just happen. That's the cycle. But what's happening is new. You're changing. Your life has a new beginning to it, a beginning without the child needing you as a child. And so again, it's a new beginning is the cycle that's repeating itself. And you have the opportunity to prepare, just like you did prepare for the beginning, a new child. You can prepare for your new life without the child being there. And so that to me is one of the things that I help people to do, is to reflect what's happened in their life and how it's repeating itself, and how you can make it what you want, make it good for you. And even if something awful happened in your life, 18 and a half years ago, something challenging is happening in your life again, and you have an opportunity to do it differently or the
Mm.
same, or something else. So you give it you I always see the divine is always giving us opportunities again and again to redo and remake and make better things that you in your life.
I love that. And I absolutely agree with you that that's what I see as well. So you're specifically citing 2003, 2005, because that would be about 18 and a half years from where we are right
Yes,
now. And so
yes,
people, if you want to look back to what were you doing somewhere between
yes,
2003 and 2005, and how is that either coming to completion, or is there a theme or something that's happening again? But there's a
yes,
cycle pattern that's just happened, because we did just have eclipses back in November, I think it was, of this
yes,
year, just
yes,
last month.
yes,
So tell us, speaking of eclipses, some people don't really know. And I did a podcast episode a couple of episodes ago where I talked about how I kind of plan for my miraculous year. And one of the things I look at is I look at, when are the eclipses happening? Where are they? Are they happening on significant days? Whatever. I know for myself personally, I've learned I'm really sensitive to the new moons and the full, like I'm just very moon sensitive because I have a lot of planets in Cancer. So those eclipses really tend to kind of stimulate me. Tell people a little bit about, what does an eclipse mean astrologically, and what is it that they need to know about it?
So with eclipses, what happens? They're in a cycle, that they cycle into different sun signs, and different signs
Mm-hmm.
of the zodiac, and they repeat, and then they come back, in 18 and a half years at the same, around the same sign and degree. And what it is this: when the sun either covers the moon, or the moon covers the sun. And what that means, when it's a solar eclipse, the sun is covering the moon, then it's something that something light is shining on something that was that's more apparent. The outer world is being a focus is being on the outer world. And when it's the moon and a lunar eclipse, it's that the emotions, the moon shadows the sun. And so you're able to access the unconscious better. Solar eclipses are the conscious light is shining on. Lunar, the unconscious light is shining on. And so it does make a difference whether it's lunar or solar. And what that's doing is it's giving you an opportunity to shine light on aspects of your life that maybe you weren't aware of, and that it helps you become aware of that, depending on what sign it's in and what house it's in. And they usually, the effect of them is usually 3 months before, 3 months after. And so if the sun, say the solar eclipse is in Gemini, okay, so it's in there, that would affect you because you're Gemini, but it has to be within your
Right.
degree,
Right.
so it has to be in your degree. So looking at a lot of things, being excited, being curious about a lot of things, that's going to be, all of a sudden new things are coming into your life that you're going to be excited about.
Right.
When it's the solar eclipse, then you're going to be curious about looking at deep in your soul, and you're going to look about wait, what am I doing that I'm not aware of? And you'll be curious
So
about.
the solar eclipse is more the outward and the lunar eclipse is more the inward? Okay.
Yes,
Okay. I want to make sure I
yes,
heard that correctly.
yes.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
so, so that's how they work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some years, if you didn't have anything happen 18 and a half years ago, then those eclipses aren't affecting you at all. It doesn't matter. They come and go and they won't even affect you. And so some years that are like that, you know.
Yeah. And we have some years that we have even more than just the four. Sometimes we'll have like 5 or 6 of them, like we did a couple of
Right.
years ago.
Yeah, but there's usually always four,
Yeah.
because there's always a solar lunar
Yeah.
a
6 months
couple.
apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a beautiful way to start looking at cycles. And one of the things I love about astrology is that these cycles invite you to reflect. They
Yes.
invite you to journal and look back and say, what is it? Because what Mother Mary always explains it is like, it's like that light being like shining on a certain area of your life and kind of calling your attention to that, whatever that might be. And I love the idea that people could talk with you and they could know for the next year and those particular eclipse cycles, like what does it mean for them personally, how to get the most benefit from that time period, how to, like I said, how to work in harmony with the cycle rather than kind of being kind of going uphill, that type of a thing.
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yay. All right. So, one of the things that I love, so I'm just going to let everybody know that I did have my chart done by Joanette. And so I have a really great idea of how she works with people. And that's one of the reasons I wanted her to come on the podcast. I've been looking for a really good astrologer that I trust for a long time. And so I'm really grateful that I got to connect with you, Joanette. And one of the things that you talked about that I don't really know much about, but was fascinating and also so accurate was asteroids. Asteroids. So can you tell us like the difference between like a planet and an asteroid and how it shows up in your chart and how that divine feminine energy is connected to those asteroids?
So the asteroids, there's an asteroid belt that is a part of the solar system that's between Mars and Jupiter, and what it is, they think it was a planet that was shattered, and there's these little fragments of planets that go around in that asteroid belt, and they named them. They named them, and they were usually giving them a lot of goddess names, and it's always interesting, um, talk about miracles, how they name these asteroids. And then you find that the meaning that they gave them really reflects so well in a chart. And so there are four, well, five, six main asteroids that I use. I keep forgetting
Six.
because I keep
Okay.
learning new ones. But the four are Ceres, Vesta, Juno, and Pallas Athene, and then the other are Chiron and Clerico. Clerico is the newest one that I am um, tracking, and I found very powerful. And they're small. Some of them are bigger than Jupiter, but bigger than Pluto. I mean, although I always Pluto, I'm sorry, is really important. I don't care what
I know, me too.
say.
Me too.
But sometimes small and mighty is sometimes small is much more powerful. But what those because we are there is something called the precession of the equinoxes, which is a 25 to 26-year cycle. And the ancients knew about that cycle and tracked it. And we are beginning to learn more and more that they did know that 25,000 and some 100 years. And there is a cycle in there that the understanding is that every 12,000 years, there is a difference in the polarity of male and female. I don't mean male and female is positive, negative.
Right.
And a negative is good, is a good thing. It's just another way of
Yeah.
our reality. And so 12,000 years ago, the female, the feminine was rising. And that's apparent in all the goddess images that have been found throughout history in every ancient site. I've read somewhere in Maria Gambadis's book that they find these little goddess statues and they've hidden them. You don't see them in
Right.
museums, although Penn Museum has now a whole section of them. I'm so excited to see it in the past couple of years. But they were afraid. They kept them in the drawers in the basement of the museums because they didn't want to hurt female sensibilities, because they didn't want women to see female naked bodies. And you go, well, wait, we never saw female naked bodies, So it was just funny to me. So the God was understood as the divine mother. That was
Yes.
the absolute. All life came from a female, so of course God must be female, because that's where life comes from. And as the cycle changes, about 6,000 years ago, there was kind of like an equal balance between male and female. And now we're at this 12,000 years later, where the male energy is prominent. And now we're moving back up the cycle. So the female energies are rising.
Yep.
And so to me, the asteroids give that aspect to a chart that brings the feminine qualities that have been ignored or pushed down. Uh, um, they come forward, so that therefore we're learning to understand ourselves more holistically.
Mhm.
And so that's what these do for me. And for Chiron and Clerico, each of these asteroids were there's a myth upon with the name of the god and goddesses. Chiron was the god who was wounded and couldn't heal himself. And so he became the divine healer. He learned all the healing arts, and he was the teacher of all the God's children, because he knew how to heal, because he had from his wound. And the Chiron in our chart is the place where we are wounded, is the place where we can heal others, ourselves, and others. Through healing others, we heal ourselves.
Wow.
Clerico is the consort or wife of Chiron. And she also is the healer, shaman, and great use of the healing arts. But she does it differently. Chiron, like the male energy, it goes straight to the problem and it fixes it. Clerico goes above and says, wait, what caused this problem? And how can we heal it from the root of the cause of the problem?
Mm.
And so I'm very excited to wear Chiron and Clerico, the dance that they do in the sky, in the charts. And Clerico was only discovered in on I wrote this down, in September 15th in 1997. And so we're
Mm.
only consciously being aware of her since 1997. Not that she wasn't there, but that we only are conscious of her since then. And there's really a lot of uh, interesting things related to that. Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did our chart, and if someone wants to work with you and have you do their astrology chart, you'll look at their birth chart, their natal chart, but you also look at like where are they now, and I forget what that's called, but you look at like where are they now.
Progress.
It's a progress chart, and that's what you were telling me was like where the asteroids were in my progress chart, and it was so right on about like, oh, that is the energy that's kind of coming in the house it was in and all of that. So when somebody works with you, there's your natal chart, that's when you were born, but there's also the cycle of where you are right now. Is that right?
Yes. Well, the way I see it is at the moment of birth, that's like a snapshot of where all the planets were at the sky at the moment of birth. So
Right.
that's that. The progress is how they move within that day to day within each year of your life. Transits are where the planets are now. So
Mm,
there's really three different charts that happen when I do a reading. One
awesome.
is what you're born with, the tools that you were born with, who you're made up to be. The progress is how you move and change within your life, and the transits are where everything is now. So it's really like three. That's a combination of the three charts. I don't know if that's too confusing. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, I totally get that. And I think it's really helpful. And just to give people an idea of just how much of a science this really is, if you move from the area where you were born, it changes. And you actually need to get a different chart done for where you are at that time because you're now in a different place. I mean, that's how specific this can get and how helpful I think it really is. So, yeah, I just want to make sure people understood that it's not just your birth chart. It's really looking at like, where am I now? And then where am I headed? And
Right.
so, go ahead.
So that if like you were born, say, here in Philadelphia uh, at this time, and you moved to California, then where the sky was at your birth is different because of the time change and where where the energies are at that point. So that's different. This still holds true, but then this makes a difference. And some people use those charts to say, "Oh, where will I be more successful?"
Yeah.
And when the sun is in the 10th house, you find where on the earth you'll be most successful. And I did that for me, and I would be most successful in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So I guess it doesn't really matter.
I know. I think I did that one time and it was like Antarctica. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that
Yeah.
successful. That's all.
So that's the thing is like, I think it's really helpful to know it's kind of, I call it the cosmic forecast. It's like, it lets you know what's going on so you know how to respond to it, but it doesn't prevent you from doing what you need to do unless you stop yourself. Because Mother Mary always says, remember that you're connected to that which created all of that. So don't limit yourself by it, but at the same time, don't be naive and kind of be foolhardy about it. Be aware. And I love it as a way to become even more aware about yourself and about what's going on in the world, for sure.
Hmm. Yes,
All
definitely.
right. So we're recording this in December of 2022. What do you want to share with us about 2023? The energy, the cycles, what is it that we need to know, or what do you see coming down the pike in the celestial forecast?
Well, I'm really excited about next year.
Me
And of
too.
course, it's like everything else, there's always going to be light and dark all the time.
Right.
Everything changes up and down. And so, what Pluto is finally coming out of Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn has been just giving us
It's
a
been
run
rough.
for money.
Yeah.
Since 2007 is when it went into Capricorn, and it's just making us crazy.
So tell people
And
what that means. Pluto, I know what it means, but tell them about Pluto and tell them about Capricorn.
So Pluto is the planet that to me is the uncoverer. It's the earthquake. Pluto comes and it uncovers things that were hidden. And the beauty about that is then we could see what was hidden. It destroys foundations that no longer hold,
Yeah.
leave the opportunity to build new ones.
Yeah.
The bad part about it is it's an earthquake. We go, oh my God, what's happening? And because it's in Capricorn, Capricorn is an earth sign. It means all of the secure places of our lives are being questioned and shaken and overturned. And since 2007, that certainly happened. And
Institutions. Yep.
yeah. So in 2008, President Obama was elected. And so that really uncovered a whole area of prejudices that we were not conscious of. And so people could say, well, really awful things happen, but it's exciting that we see things that we didn't see. So now you can't fix something and make it better unless you know what's broken. And
Right.
so that's what's really exciting. So Pluto finally comes out of Capricorn in 2023. And it's like,
Yay.
oh, thank you, God. But it goes into Aquarius. And so, but Aquarius is the progressive, it's for progressive, it's humanitarian. And so our focus is going to be on solutions that are humanitarian and that are forward thinking. And also, what's happening is Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces, and that's water. So there's going to be a lot of issues with water, flooding, drought, hurricanes, flooding, those kinds of things, which seem like they're awful, but because of the Pluto, and because Chiron goes in Aquarius as well, we're going to look for solutions that are humanitarian, that help all
That
people,
helps everybody. Yep.
and it helps the heal it in a more um, stabilizing way. We're not going to just put band-aids on something. We're going to heal it at the root.
Right.
And so that's also it's a time of spiritual awakening. There's going to be a lot of spiritual awakening happening, and you're aware of it now. I mean, you can't, all these words about transformation, spiritual awakening, shamanic interests, all those kinds of things are like everyday occurrences. We've had Harry Potter, for goodness sake. All the kids already know about magic. We know we can do
Right.
great things with magic. And so this it's at the tipping point. Next year will be like the tipping point where we will go into it um, more noticeable, more consciously. Now, for some people, that could be scary, and so some people could see it as a terrible time. When they talk about finances, I always get so makes me laugh. Finances go up and down all the time.
I know.
And if you haven't been long enough alive, you go, oh my God, this is the end of the world. No, they said that 50 years ago. Well,
Right.
actually, it was you know 80 years ago. Yeah, we were going to die 100
Yep.
years ago. So
Yeah.
it just keeps coming back. But Pluto in the United States chart is in the second house, which is the house of finances. So Pluto has been like gone back and forth, uh, causing havoc in our second house. But it's not just finances. That second house represents the characteristics, what you're born with, what your gifts are. And so I believe when it goes into Pluto, which will still be in this, when it goes in Pluto going to an Aquarius, still in the second house, we're going to start looking at things of value that are not financial, not
Ah,
money worth. So that if money doesn't get what we want, how else can we get it?
right.
And then we learn to value those things that are worth more than money. And so we
Interesting.
value sharing. We value cooperation. So I really think that this year, I don't know if this will be true. We'll see when this podcast comes out. But the retail businesses may not do as well during this Christmas season, because people don't have, first of all, don't have the money, and second of all, what do we really need? We're looking at what we have and what we can give each other rather than physical things, but give them our love, our caring, our time, and we'll share. And so to me, that's what is going to be more apparent
Yeah, and the
this coming
Aquarius
year.
energy is also innovation, isn't it? It's like it's innovation, it's very
Yeah.
forward thinking, it's very yeah, it's kind of that Einstein vibration. It's that energy of coming up with solutions, like you said, are more sustainable and all of that. But I wonder if that's what's going to be happening with some of these things, is that
Yes.
Solutions we've been needing for a long time, boom, the way to do it is going to come forward.
And the
And
way to
personally
do
as
it
well,
is not,
you know.
yes, personally and collectively. And so we're going to do things that don't take, uh, it's not the old way of doing. It's like, I'm not going to buy it new. I'm going to learn how to share what I have and um, and use what I have.
Yeah.
So we're using innovative ways of
Yeah.
sustainable and caring
It's
for
the
each
age of Aquarius idea of like
other.
everybody collectively and supporting each other. I love that. All right, beautiful. Anything else you want to share with us about it that's going on that we want to be
The only
mindful
other
of?
thing that I was really excited about when I was preparing for this podcast is that looking at the United States chart, on the day that Clerico, who is the shamanic healer, was discovered, it was in 6 degrees Leo. And when I look at the United States chart, 6 degrees Leo is the north node of the chart.
It
And
is
north
interesting.
the north node of in a chart means the direction you're going to in this lifetime. And I just thought unconsciously the direction that the country was going through uh, that was a, was conscious in 97 is that we're doing it, will we heal here? Part of what we want is to heal and to heal the earth. And the intention of the founding fathers was to heal, uh, to change the old way of how we dealt with societies. And
Yeah.
so I was really excited to see that. I think that's really
Yeah.
a fun piece of information.
Really, really powerful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I know there's so much that we could talk about for sure. And is there
Yes.
anything else that you wanted us to know? Anything else about
I
anything that you can think
No,
of?
I think I could still talk another
I know.
12 hours about this.
I
That's all I
know.
can think of.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Well,
thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
the only other thing is when I do a chart,
Yeah.
I always do my prayers before and light a candle. And I'd like you uh, ask, what is the most important thing that this person needs to hear? You know, what would the divine like this person to hear? So each chart is done with that in mind. So I may give somebody indications of all the asteroids, or I may not. It depends on what's most important. And I trust the divine to guide me into giving them what's most important at that time in their life.
Yes. And I love that. And thank you for letting us know about it because I think it's a really important difference of, how you approach things and inviting that divine energy in. So, if people want to understand a little bit more about themselves, if they want to understand about the cycle that they're in and the cycle of this new year, whatever year people might be listening to this particular episode, um, what what's the best way for people to connect with you if they do want to work with you and they want to find out a little bit more about their chart and getting a reading done? How would they connect with you, Joanette?
Well, through email.
Email's best. Okay.
Email is best, and my email address is my name, Joanette, Joanette, and the email is Joanette36@gmail.com.
Okay, so I'll put that in the show notes. It's Joanette, Joanette 36, so 36 at gmail.com. And that's the
Yes,
best way to connect.
yes.
And so I encourage everybody to do that. If you're interested in finding out more about the cycles in your life, where are you, what's going on, where do where might you need some support? One of the things that I love about it is it really shows us parts of ourselves that we're just not as aware of. And as we become a little bit more aware, we're able to really respond in a different way. And that's where that energy of mastery starts to come in, where you're like, oh, you know, this is what the cosmic forecast is calling for. I think I'll take my umbrella, so to speak, and that you can really respond to it. I find it to feel really empowering when you look at it through that lens of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to take care of myself. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Joanette. I'm so grateful for you spending time here with us and sharing your beautiful wisdom and everything. And I'm just so grateful that you've been able to keep expanding all these years and that you're still offering this beautiful work. So thank you so much, my friend, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Francis. I really enjoyed it. I always love your work, and it's so inspiring and enriching, and it fills me. So thank you, and thank you for letting me do this.
Thank you so much. All
Mhm.
right, my friends. Well, welcome. I'm getting ready to start all over again. Thank you so much for listening and for being here on this particular episode. If you did enjoy it, please, my friends, share this with anybody that you know that might need some inspiration today, with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues. Feel free to share it on social media. It really makes a big difference when you let people know about it. And I'm so grateful for those of you who are doing that. If you can, I highly encourage you to leave a review. That makes the biggest difference of all for me. But most important, remember that the key to magnifying your miracles is to know that your miracle is already here. We'll see you next time, my friends. Take care. Bye-bye.